you like those LED headlights, hit the link below and use code SCHMICKL to save yourself 10% off your order. Alrighty, well, it's been almost a week since the last clip that you guys saw, because I've been doing some work off camera here. Just figured I wouldn't record this stuff because it was, I guess, a little boring and just really not really related to installation of this harness. You know, and it was really just tedious, like neatening up wires basically and shortening some wires, and really mainly the bulk of it was under my steering column. I have a bunch of wires that I've added in over the years and taken out and stuff, and it just was like a real mess under there, and it still is kind of a mess, but it's much nicer than it was previously, and nothing was like wrapped and all that. So I can show you what I did under the hood here first. So the last clip was me drilling this hole down here and then running the harness in. So I have it, so the harness is ran up against the firewall, and it will be secured here, and I may put another riv nut back here, or I might just zip tie this all together. But I ended up just routing this stuff like under the intake and under these pipes and stuff to just try and hide it as best as I could. And I ended up shortening some of these, like the reverse one. I put a Deutsch connector on. I didn't have a connector, an end for my VTEC solenoid, so I added a Deutsch there. Like this is for my fuel pressure sender. I'm going to wrap this in the braided sheathing that I have, and I'm going to run this along with the harness. And I also bought these, there's one right here, these 2-inch rubber plugs. This isn't a perfect round circle, but I have one that's going to go down here, and I put an X through it, so I'm going to run the harness through it. I just need to pull it back out and run each connector through these, which might be difficult, but if it doesn't work out, I'm going to just cut it right in half and then just slip it around everything once it's all in there. But I basically just tied for there was a few extra connectors that I wasn't going to be using, like oxygen sensor, and then there's the 2 extra line wires that they give you. I've tied those into my boost controller now that runs down here, and I also tied it into the flex fuel sensor. So these things used to come out through this plug here, and I decided that I wanted everything to come out through the one down there. So I ended up putting a plug there, which I got these right here, which I'll link down in the description, along with these 2-inch hoses in case anybody wants to do the same routing I did. They weren't expensive at all. Those were like $9 for the 6 of them, and those were like probably $9 too. I got these Deutsch connectors. There's 2-pin ones that I'll link down there. This kit, I think, for 10 of these, 10 2-pin connectors, I think it was like $20 or $23. And this kit over here has a bunch of different ones that we will be using on the inside, which I'll show you right now. So this is kind of the mess that I had going here. That was much worse than it is now. It still kind of looks like a mess, but everything just was not wrapped up nice, and it kind of looked like this, which I didn't fix my security. My alarm system kind of just is balled up over there, which maybe one day I'll take all those out and clean them up. But this is basically what I spent most of the time doing, was cleaning all this stuff up and routing the wires over it, and also routing wires that need to go, that are all down there. These all need to connect back up into the ECU through some of these wires here, which I plan to use those other like Chinese Deutsch connectors for, which I'll link those down in the description too, because for like the 40 bucks for the 40 bucks that cost, it's definitely worth it. I haven't had any issues with them, and I know they're not real brand Deutsch connectors, but they're knockoffs, but they work great. So what we're gonna do now is finish up doing some stuff out here, routing the harness through and putting the sheathing on the fuel temp, or sorry, fuel pressure sensor. And then the next main thing I need to do is, you don't have to do this, you could run the jumper harness, or not jumper but sub harness, the Jack Spaniel one I got, through here. But I plan on cutting these two connectors out of the harness and running them back through here, which this is already torn from when I had to cut it to take when I took this out to do the engine bay, because it was so rock hard. But I'm gonna run these two plugs back in so everything is inside, and we'll hook up the sub harness, and we'll hook up, I'll show you connecting the extra wires I have to do to the computer. Like I gotta do the wideband, flex fuel, boost controller, a few of those. I'll put in a clip of me pinning a connector for those. And one other thing that you have to purchase or make or cut out of your old harness is the alternator charge harness, they call it. You can buy these, or if you want to save money, you can literally just cut this out of your old harness, and it goes all the way over to here, and you would just cut this all the way out. I ended up doing that on an old harness that was junk for my job, because if you guys don't know, I work for Honda, so we do a lot of, you know, engine harnesses and stuff, because rodents like to chew them things. So what I did is took one that I had and I modified the ends because they didn't really fit, and I just wrapped it in sheathing and ran it along the firewall, and I'm going to zip tie it to the main harness. And I had to modify this end and just shaved it down, and it fits in there nice. And one other thing that I'm going to be doing is remaking this wire with some wire that I have over here and wrapping it in sheathing. So let's I'm not really sure what I'm going to do first, but probably it's going to be out here in the engine bay. Alright, one more. Alright. I don't think I mentioned this before, but there is a little hole to start here. That's where your AC drain comes out. So if you don't have the AC drain, you can drill that right out. You just have to offset it a little bit so the drill bit has some sheet metal to go into. Like this one, I had to put a piece of wood behind it to drill the hole saw through it. This sheathing is like Chinese finger torture type sheathing, which kind of is hard to get it started. But I have some 3/8 split loom that I use to wrap the alternator wire. So I will put these in the description in case anybody is interested in the stuff. It's cheap off of Amazon. This is hockey tape. It's like Tessa tape, but I don't have to wait for it. I can just go to Dick's and get it. It's a little different than, material, but pretty close to Tessa tape, and it looks the same. And it costs about the same too. Okay, so I'm gonna get ready to put this Jack Spania sub harness in. I just need to I have the harness zip tied up here, and I'm going to run it along like this. And I have my ECU in the glove box, so I think I'm going to fish the cables through here to connect to the ECU, and then the C101 portion I'm going to leave down here and hook up this way and run along the back of the firewall if I can, or if not, zip tie it right up against the harness right here, because you need the C101 over here, and you need a couple connectors off your old harness for like the main relay and stuff like that, because this sub harness, these are the connectors right here. This is a full plug and play kit. These two wires are just the extra wires like I was talking about earlier. So I'm gonna fish these through, we'll plug it in, and we'll fish this baby over to the other side and plug these two connectors into the two that we cut out of the engine bay. Okay, so this is the side that goes to the driver's side, so we're going to just shoot this over there for now. And have the C101 connector hanging down here. This is a ground junction, I believe. You don't need to do anything with that. Ooh, these connectors are really firm. I've heard people complaining that the eBay harnesses, the connectors are kind of floppy, but my first experiences with them, they're really hard to snap together, which is a good thing, is you don't want them to come apart. And then this is what makes this a full plug and play kit. And then you need the other big connector here. There you go. And the little one you don't do anything with, because they only have these two wires. I think these are for the main relay, and these ones ELD and something else, I can't remember. I'm not going to wrap this all up, but we'll go to the other side and we'll hook this side of the wire up, and then I'll neaten this up off camera and show you what it looks like, and then I can get to wiring up some of this stuff. Alright, so here are the connectors that we pulled through the firewall, and you can just route these up and around, and I will here are the other ends, and I will just zip tie this to the rest of the harness. The rest of this mess I got going on here that I probably should have cleaned up a little better, but at least I did it a little better than it was. Okay, so that's pretty much the engine harness install. The only other thing I really need to do is just connect the other connectors I have for other sensors I have and stuff like that. Really, if you were doing to your car and you have the wideband sensor to the ECU, that'd probably be the only wires you would need to connect if you run the ground to the sensor ground. And for the D14, because that's what I'm going to do right now, and because I run a link, I have a few other sensors that go to it, like my oil pressure, fuel pressure, and there might have been one other. So I'm going to run some Deutsch connectors over there and pin those up. I'll probably show like a video of one pinning them up, and then I'm gonna probably zip tie this all up off camera and clean it up, and probably put the battery back in and stuff like that, and then just give you guys a once over what it looks like installed, and then we'll do the first start with you to see if it actually starts up, or if I need to switch some pins around because I didn't wire the harness correctly from the factory, probably in China. Alright, well, in the last clip I had shown I was doing the sub harness over here and stuff, and I ended up doing a bunch of work off camera. It's probably been like a week or something since I filmed something, because I would only come out here after work for like an hour and mess with something, and really I should have redid all this wiring under the dashboard here, just because I would come out, spend 20-30 minutes trying to figure out what I had figured out the day before, and then worked for 30 minutes, and then went inside and then forgot what I was doing, had to do it all over again instead of just labeling things. And then I got to a point where I was labeling things, and then finding out what I thought I had labeled right was wrong, and I should have just started from the beginning with how much time I had spent on this. But basically got everything inside all wired. I didn't show it because of the confusion, and also it's kind of hard to film in this area here. And as you can see, I got a mess of tools over the week of working, but I got the harness routed that comes in through the firewall here and wraps around and goes up into the fuse box. This harness stuff is for like the wideband, my oil pressure sensor and stuff like that, and this one right here is for my fuel pressure sensor. And then this wiring is going to go back out and go to the battery. I was going to run because this is for the fuel pump, I was going to run this on the fuse box because they do have extra spots on there, and one of them is constant 12 volts that I could use, but I didn't think that it could maybe hold the amperage, so I just want to connect this right back to the battery. It would have looked a little cleaner, but I have one on the battery that I'm going to redo for the fan anyways, and I figured I'd rather just pull the amperage straight from the battery than risk pulling 30 plus amps from the, it's probably not 30, but from the fuse box terminal over there, because I don't know if that terminal is rated for that kind of amperage. But I have all the wiring in here done. It's a little bit of a mess, but it's much better than it is. I have Deutsch connectors on everything, which before all of this stuff was spade connectored and taped together. And most of this stuff is for the extra harness for my link. And really, if you run Honda out, really all you would have to add in here would be like for the wideband, which this isn't the connector, but it's D, the one all the way down here. This is A. But just say this yellow wire was it. What I did for D14 is I cut the wire and kept it connected, and connected my wideband wire to the side that's connected to the ECU. And that would really be the only mod you would need to make if you wanted to connect your wideband to sensor ground. You could cut back some of the sheathing on one of these. I actually think this green might be sensor ground. I'm not sure. It might have been on D2. And then you could just wrap the wire around it and keep it connected into the harness. I had run my ethanol sensor through the wideband wires because I'm not even using any of the wideband wires. But I found out that two of them you can't use because one's a power and one's a ground. So I was only able to use the D14 one, and one of the other wires, it's for like the heater sensor. I had to use the wire for the knock sensor, and the wire for D14 I use because it's actually just a wire because I cut part of it. So it's really just a wire through the harness. So I use that one, and the other two for the wideband to actually, so I didn't have to run like another harness through there. I just wanted to say that in case somebody wanted to try and do something like that, because you're not going to use the wideband, or sorry, the oxygen sensor. If you wanted to cut to use those wires, you can, but you can only use two, because the other two you can't cut from the ECU end. So like when I one of the other wires I actually have is like you can't really see it, this wire right there, that is the other wire that connects to the wideband sensor, which I cut and ran over here, and it runs up into this plug here, and it's for the ethanol sensor. But yeah, what I'm gonna do now is actually, before I do that, I'll show you that I did, you can see, clean up some of that wiring over there. It's kind of hard to tell from me showing you from the passenger side, and the wiring for this stuff is definitely much more clean. It's all wrapped and everything. Like before, it was just all bare wires everywhere, and it was a freaking tangled mess. I wish I had a before picture to show you, but yeah, let's I'm gonna go out into the engine bay now, and I'm gonna redo the power wires and probably the ground and wrap them in this sheathing here and put new battery terminals on, and then can put the catch can on. Alright, so that does it for the starter wire. Wraps around the transmission, or under the starter, around the wheel speed sensor next to the transmission mount. I think for right here, I think I might put a P-clamp somewhere around here, and there is a riv nut right here that I'm going to riv nut right in there. Can't really see it because it's dark, that I have already, but I'm going to put a P-clamp there. And yeah, so I'm going to do the positive to fuse box, and I'm going to wrap it around here and run it up in here, and I'm going to do the negative to right here because I already have it there, and I'm going to do those off camera because you get the gist. So I ended up finishing the negative and positive terminals. I got this pipe in the way because I wanted to plug the oxygen, or intake air temp sensor in so we can start it up and see if there's any check engine lights. But you know, I got the starter wire in here, wrapped around, P-clamped, and it runs up and is P-clamped here. And I ended up putting some heat shrink on the wire just for a chafage, possible chafage. I was going to run these both and everything behind here so it would come up and you would barely see any of the wires, but it's really tight back here, and I had some heat shrink to make it look a little cleaner, but I just wasn't comfortable with leaving it behind here and also behind there, and it was putting a little bit of tension on the starter wire. So I decided to run them like that. I'm actually going to turn them just a tiny bit more. But I had this extra stud here that my old catch can hung off of. So I put a P-clamp to make it look a little nicer and got the negative one. So now we could probably go in here and start it and see if it runs. It's probably not going to run very great. The cold start with these injectors, the 93, I don't have it dialed in. I had it okay with the E85, but these injectors, I need to do more cold start tuning on it, but I'm not going to because I'm going to be changing these injectors. So let's get in here and try and crank this thing up, see what happens. Probably gonna take a few tries. And I also can't run it very long because there's no coolant, because I plan on putting new radiator in there and some other parts we're going to be doing other videos for. Hey, let's just do another double check here, make sure we're okay. All right, let's see what happens. Check engine light, but she runs. So I bet you the check engine light is the check engine light was for the ethanol sensor, because one of the wires was messed up for that. I didn't start the car, but I turned it on and saw the ethanol sensor was at 100, and I didn't clear. Shut that off because it stinks in here fast. So I didn't start it, but I just wanted to. I turned it on off camera because I got excited after I had everything wired up. And I looked at the ethanol sensor and it was at 100. So I ended up finding that I had two wires switched those back, and then found one of the pins in the connectors kind of pushed out. So I put that back in there and it's fine. But the link, even if you disconnect the battery, it usually still stores the code in there. So I'm going to probably hook my laptop up here later and clear that, because I bet you that's what the code is. I actually think we could probably, let's see, it'll blink at us. I don't know. That wasn't 3, that was a little bit more. Usually just 3 is on the link is ethanol sensor. So I'm gonna plug the laptop in, just see verify what the check engine light is, and then we'll go from there. So I don't know if you'll be able to pick this up on the GoPro because I know it doesn't zoom, but ethanol intake air temp sensor, so I had that unplugged when I turned the ignition on, and analog temperature, that's the same thing, and then ethanol sensor. So I should be able to clear these, and nothing has seemed to come back. So no codes. Awesome. Sweet. Makes me happy. A little $100 harness is totally worth it. Yeah, and all the little extra mods I did to it worked out. You know, I just basically cut some wires and spliced them in, but yeah, all that worked out. So now I'm going to try and mount this catch can up in here and just make a quick little bracket, you know, and then we'll end this video. Alright, so on that last little clip there, my GoPro died, but I basically had to redo this bend. I had the bend about, I don't know, I think it was here, and I realized I needed it to be here to position the catch can where it is right now, so I didn't have to modify either of these lines.
It's going to look like I don't need to modify this line either, or this one. I'll just need to modify this one back here. I'm used to have a hose going to my catch can here, and probably am still going to run another hose into this catch can. I'm just going to do a 1/8 NPT bung on it, but I drilled a hole and mounted it, obviously, but I have this plate here, and what I plan with this is using this hole right here and putting the plate over and welding it to this one. I think I might bend this, or I might just cut it and weld it. But if I bend it, like the bend would go behind here and weld it, I don't really think it would make it any stronger. So I thought it might, but honestly, for ease of just installation, I probably will just cut it, mark it, and weld it. And one other thing is that I didn't mention is the wiring harness I cut. These are the plugs that used to connect here for the engine harness. And I made sure the car still runs like that. And I just put some silicone over it. And what I'm going to do is put a sleeve of heat shrink over it and maybe tape it up and then just zip tie it back. So you won't see that. But the welding brings me to this. I got a new welding table. This is like the Harbor Freight one. But it's Clutch brand. It's $10 more than the Harbor Freight one now. The Harbor Freight one's like it's $190 now, and this one's $200, and I didn't have to pay anything to ship it, so it's $212 right to my door. And I know the Harbor Freight one is really hard to find, but I'm gonna set you guys up in a time lapse, and I'm gonna whip this baby out and then test it out for the first time and weld up that piece. Alright, well, I got this thing all built. It comes with it comes with 4 clamps, like it's literally the same as Harbor Freight. So if you know what that comes with little wedges, and these are like stops to bolt down with these bolts. Same thing here. And then the clamp is set again, and then they come with these feet. But I ended up putting these 4-inch Harbor Freight feet on, and I had to drill them out to a 1/2-inch 13. If you were to get the 4 or 3-inch ones with a brake or without, I think the bolt size would just thread right in there, and it would be an inch lower. It would probably be the same height as my table here, but I'm a little taller, so I actually think I like the height. But it moves around, and I got the brakes on there if needed to stop it on all 4 corners. And then this has a lip in here where I could put another piece of metal and either put my welder in there if I wanted to or whatever. But you know, I need this mobile just like the sandblaster there, because I'm space restricted and we're pretty much out of room. This is pretty much the last big equipment that I can stick in my garage, really. Yeah, because we're out of room. I've been thinking about maybe knocking these 2 walls down and just going a diagonal there, because I can't do a perfect corner because of the way my yard is. But I've been thinking about doing that to try and get a little bit extra space in here, but that's quite a bit of work. And I've got the loft portion up there I would have to maybe do something to, or I don't know. Getting sidetracked here. Let's get back to the project. I'm gonna mark that piece of metal, probably just cut it, and then we'll weld them together.
So if you guys don't have a set of these AN jaws, you know, for years I've been doing just in the vise and marring up the fittings, even though I cut this fitting. These are really nice. They help a lot with, yeah, keeping them clean and nice, but honestly, it just really makes putting them together that much easier. I got these off Amazon, I think, for like $10. Totally worth it. Also, another thing that's making this really easy is this like $10 Amazon wrench. AN wrench. Definitely helps out also. Alright. She's all wrinkled now. I'm going to let this dry, and then tomorrow we'll fully install this thing. I think for the vent on the valve cover here, this one, I actually think I'm just going to cap it because these two on the valve cover are going to be more than enough, and I don't need another line. So we'll let this dry, and tomorrow after work I'll wrap this up and probably peel a couple more of these yellow things off and give you a once over of the whole harness and all that, and it'll wrap up this video because this has probably been a few weeks of me doing this and ordering parts and waiting and being lazy and all sorts of stuff. So I'd like to wrap this video up because after this we got some more upgrades for this. I got a lot to do on this car. Well, I got this all mounted up. I just threw the pipe in there just so I could give you guys one last look at all of this, but also got all the little yellow things off. And I wish I had a before and after, because really in this area it was very crowded. The catch can was over here and the wire harness and all that, and now you can really get in there. I don't know if the GoPro will focus enough, but you can't really see the wires, even though there's still a lot going on here. But yeah, everything came out pretty dang good. Another one of those little stupid yellow stickers. But I think this came out really good. I mean, for how much that harness cost, $100, and the Jack Spania jumper harness was $80. That catch can was $30. You know, for a nice cheap upgrade, this definitely helped out good. And you know, I did this for looks, but also another reason why I did this is
I don't know if the GoPro will catch on to this, but some of these wires, like right here, the sheathing is broken away and coming loose. And one time me and my girlfriend went to breakfast and I had just moved one of the coil wires and we pulled it into the restaurant and the car died. And I jiggled the wire and it came back. You know, it just needed to be, the connector needed to be at a certain angle. Otherwise the wire was not connected, I guess. So it's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to put one of these on, to give the wires, to have new wires on here. And also for it to look nice. I really like the way that these harnesses look, and I don't really want to spend $400 on one of these harnesses. I thought about making one for my hatch. I even bought like a connector kit to just make my own harness. And then I stumbled upon these $100 harnesses, and I figured I bought one for that one. And then I was like, well, I'm going to buy one for this one and install it and make sure it works. And it does. You know, I can't drive it down the road yet because we got salt. And also, I got no coolant in there because I do plan on putting another new radiator in. I got a 4-core. I also have a Speed Factory camshaft and cam gear I'm going to put in. I have a new twin disc I'm going to put in with a hydraulic throwout bearing. And I have reverse mounted tie rods I'm going to put in to fix the bump steer some. So, yeah, I think that'll wrap up this video. So yeah, just want to say before we go, if you're subscribed, I appreciate you guys very much for subscribing, checking out my channel, watching the videos. Appreciate you all very much, and hope to catch you guys next time. Have a good one.